When you hear a motorcycle ripping down the road, it's pretty easy to tell when it's a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, but it's a bit trickier to tell which model. What's up, guys? I'm Isaac at Tobacco Road Harley-Davidson, and today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to talk about some of the key differences between some of the more popular modern Harley-Davidson models to prepare you to better identify bikes you might see at that next stoplight. So whether you're just getting into motorcycles or you've been around them a while, it can get confusing trying to tell bikes apart. While this might seem like a cool skill to impress your fellow motorsports enthusiasts or your date at the dinner table, probably won't, being able to tell different models apart is especially important when you're trying to find the bike that's right for you. If you're looking for your first Harley, then you've probably heard of Sportsters, Dynas, and Street Glides, but you might not be sure what those actually are. So to help you on your journey, let's start with the base of a motorcycle, the motor. One of the biggest advantages to Harley-Davidson models is also one of the reasons it can be so hard to tell them apart, and that's how customizable they are. You might not want to depend on telling these bikes apart based on their handlebars, exhaust, or seat, because those are the items that are swapped out the most, and most of the bikes you'll see in this video have been customized. Now, the easiest way to tell bike families apart are the parts that aren't changed as much, the motor and the frame. Now, to tell models within a family apart, then you'll be looking at the tank, the foot control locations, the tire size, and the suspension. Now, Harley-Davidson runs several different frames, but for 2024, there are only two main motor platforms. Now, granted, there are different variations of each. There's the liquid-cooled Ripper, known as the Revolution Max, and the more traditional torque monster, the Milwaukee 8. While many have either an oil cooler or radiator, the Milwaukee 8s still partially rely on air cooling. So one of the easiest ways to tell these motorcycles apart are the rough fins compared to the smoothness on the Rev Max. Now, most big twins like the Milwaukee 8 like to spread themselves out on the bike, meaning the motor is a separate unit from the transmission and utilizes another separate unit to connect the two, often referred to as the primary, as it's the primary or the first transfer of power on the bike. Meanwhile, the Rev Max houses all of those parts together in the one unit, so it'll look a bit more condensed. Now, these next two motor platforms have been discontinued, but there's still plenty of them on the road, so it's only right to bring these up. If it looks like a big twin Milwaukee 8, but the top of the motor is a bit more squared off compared to the rounder, that's most likely a twin cam motor, the Milwaukee 8's predecessor. Now, my die-hard HD fans will have to forgive me for leaving out the twin cam's predecessor, but we're going to try keeping it simple with just these four motors. Now, if it looks like a twin cam, it has the fins, it has the squarish heads, but it looks a little smaller, and the push rods, or those two sets of two rods that make that V shape on the front of the motor, are actually parallel. Instead of having that twist, you're looking at an Evo motor, known for powering the famous Harley-Davidson Sportsters. So now that you know the four main motors you're most likely to see, let's start identifying the motorcycles that are going to come from each. Now, keep in mind we won't be able to name every model on these platforms, as we're mainly going to talk about the more popular ones. So if there's one we left out, then be sure to talk about your favorite in the comments. So let's start with the Evo. If it has an Evo motor, there's a 99% chance of it's some form of the Sportster. There's a lot of different types of Sportsters, but most in the past few years before this powertrain was discontinued utilized either the air-cooled 1200cc Evo or the air-cooled 883cc Evo. These bikes were some of the smallest and sportiest bikes produced by Harley-Davidson, making them excellent for beginners, smaller stature riders, or riders that just wanted a simple yet fun bike to rip on. We saw the 1200 powered Sportster 48 with a small gas tank and big old tires, the blacked out nimble cruiser known as the Iron 1200, and its smaller bobber sibling, the Iron 883, with an aggressive bobber stance. Then one of my favorites, the sportier 1200 power Roadster, and so many more over the years. But if you see the Evo motor, these big exposed rear shocks, and more of a triangle-shaped oil tank under the seat, most likely it's some form of the classic Sportster. Now, when the Evo motor was discontinued, it was replaced with the all-new liquid-cooled Revolution Max motor. This new powertrain added quite the update to the Sportsters of old. With it, you have the 1250cc and the 975cc variants. The 1250T powers the Sportster S, an aggressive, tracker-inspired, tech-loaded machine that opened up the sport category of Harley-Davidson motorcycles. In this category, you also have the 975-powered Nightster and Nightster S, both quick, nimble bikes with a more traditional Sportster silhouette and their own differences we've talked about in other videos. Now, as much fun as the Rev Max is, it couldn't just be used for Sportsters. In 2021, Harley-Davidson began its venture in the off-road/off-road touring or adventure touring market with the Pan America, a motorcycle category previously dominated by bikes like the BMW GS. The new 1250 Rev Max powered Pan America proved itself as a dominator in that category, adding the adventure touring category to the Harley-Davidson lineup. Previously, we had the HD Pan America and the Pan America Special, separated by a handful of additional features, but now we only have the Pan America Special and new for 2024, the CVO Pan America. The Pan America is very easy to identify with that Rev Max motor, taller suspension, and a stance that is still very Harley-Davidson, but unlike any of the other current models. Now, let's talk about the Milwaukee 8 and twin cam powered motorcycles. Since the Milwaukee 8 replaced the twin cam, it's still pretty easy to spot a model whether it's the Milwaukee 8 version or the twin cam version. But where it gets more complicated is when we introduce the Dyna. Before the M8 came around, you had the Softail and the Dyna line. While the Softails were your more Sunday morning cruiser bikes like the Fat Boy, the Heritage, the Deluxe, and the Breakout, the Dyna was the Saturday night runner that did as much cruising as it did ripping. Here we saw models like the Lowrider, the Street Bob, the Fat Bob, Y-Glide, and the Super Glide. Both model lines were twin cam powered, so you'll have to look at the frame to tell these two apart. The Dynas tended to look like bigger Sportsters with their exposed rear shocks, but with a bigger stature and square battery box instead of the triangular oil tank. Now with the Softail, it was designed to imitate the appearance of a hardtail motorcycle that lacked any rear suspension, but with the benefits of those rear shocks, so they were hidden on the bottom of the frame. In 2018, the Milwaukee 8 Softail was introduced to replace both the twin cam Softail and the Dyna lines. This platform stayed true to the Softail appearance, but transitioned to a sportier monoshock under the seat, changing how the swing arm pivoted, leading to a bike that could be set up for cruisers and sportier models. Now in 2024, we see models live on through the Milwaukee 8 Softail, like the Standard, the Lowrider, now the Lowrider S and ST, the Street Bob, the Fat Boy, the Heritage, and the Breakout, which brings us to the most popular category, the Grand American Touring. What you need to know to get started are the three main touring bikes and their even larger counterparts. To tell it's a touring bike, it'll be powered by a big twin, having hard saddlebags, and be this larger touring frame, hosting a 6-gallon tank and relaxed riding position. From here, we have the fork-mounted Batwing fairing on the Street Glide, the frame-mounted fairing of the Road Glide, and the fairingless, naked style of the Road King. For 2024, the only version of the Road King available is the 114 cubic inch Milwaukee 8 powered Road King Special. If you like the Batwing fairing of the Street Glide, but want lower fairings in a Tour Pack stock, there's the Ultra Limited. If you also like those additional upgrades, but enjoy the fixed frame mounted fairing, then you've got the Road Glide Limited. There's been a lot of change in the Grand American Touring motorcycles over the years. For most of the 2000s, the Street Glide, Road Glide, their respective limited models, and the Road King were twin cam powered. But in 2017, they received the Milwaukee 8 powertrain. Then for 2024, the Street Glide and Road Glide received liquid-cooled versions of the 117 cubic inch Milwaukee 8 with redesigned bodywork and upgraded electronics. The Limiteds and Road King remain mostly unchanged from 2023. So the biggest takeaway for identifying which touring motorcycle you're looking at will likely be in what front fairing it has or doesn't have. So then there's the trikes. The Tri-Glide Ultra has been pretty much the standard Harley-Davidson trike we've been seeing for the past few years. And very similar to the other touring bikes, it transitioned from the twin cam platform to that Milwaukee 8 platform. Now, in the past couple years, we had a couple more trikes added on. You're looking at the stripped-down cruiser-style freewheeler, and now you're also looking at a freewheeler body, but with a Road Glide fairing, and this bike is known as the Road Glide 3. So for 2024, there's the Ultra Classic, there's the Road Glide 3, and there's the freewheeler. So to recap, if it's a small Evo powered bike, it's most likely going to be a Sportster. If it's a small Rev Max powered bike, it'll be a Nightster or a Sportster S. Then if it's a big Rev Max powered bike, it's going to be a Pan America. If it's got a twin cam and 2 exposed shocks, it's going to be a Dyna. If it's a twin cam and hidden shocks, Softail. Milwaukee 8 and hidden shocks, also a Softail. Then if it's a touring frame with a fixed fairing, Road Glide. Touring frame and fairing that moves with the bars, Street Glide. Touring frame with no fairing or just a windshield, Road King. So keeping all these in mind, before you know it, you're going to be a pro at spotting Harley-Davidson models. So before we close out, there's 2 discontinued liquid-cooled bonus bikes to bring up. The Street Series and, of course, the V-Rods. The Street line was the liquid-cooled Revolution X V-twin powered cruiser. It had a couple variants, most famously the 500cc and the 750cc. If you took a Harley-Davidson Riding Academy class in the past few years, then you likely rode that 500cc version known as the Street 500. Now the V-Rods, those were an entirely different animal altogether. It was an 1130cc liquid-cooled Revolution powered powerhouse. Most famously known for the assistance from Porsche in the design of this machine and the thrilling ride these motorcycles can provide, earning these bikes their own cult-like following. Now, there's a lot of other motors and models we didn't talk about, but what you've learned here is an excellent start to spotting Harley-Davidson models you might see around town and give you a better understanding to help hone in on which model you're thinking about getting a set of keys for. So if you want to know more, you want to walk around, or have us quiz you, then be sure to stop by here at Tobacco Road Harley-Davidson in Raleigh, North Carolina, and feel free to reach out or drop any comments below. So thanks for watching, and we hope to see you soon.